More on the semiconductor sector now amid this geopolitical uncertainty. We welcome back to the show Michelle Giuda, Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy at Purdue, the CEO there. Michelle, always great to have your voice. Let's just talk about what you're hearing from semiconductor companies at the moment. Are we still seeing the administration getting what it wants?
I think we are seeing a tightening of export controls, which has been the trajectory for the past few years. And I think it speaks to the strategic nature of semiconductors because they're powering consumer technologies and they're also powering defense tech at the same time. So if you look at American chip companies like NVIDIA, like AMD, or allied chip companies like TSMC, they have a very strategic role to play. They're at the front lines of geopolitical competition. And so they're not passive but active players in making sure that the U.S. and the free world maintains technological leadership. And so these increasing export controls are a reflection of that.
When TSMC puts out an annual report saying, we're going to struggle with this, when they're trying to own the fact that they perhaps don't always understand the exact end user. Of course, there was reports that TSMC chips ended up in Huawei products. How do you rate that acknowledgement from a company?
Well, I'd say the great opportunity for a company like TSMC is the fact that TSMC produces 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. And so if you look at the leverage that they have, if they were to issue guidance requiring more disclosure, more transparency, and understanding downstream who the end users are of the chips that they're making, I think they would see that their customers would be highly responsive to that because of the leadership role that they play. And that's an important thing here. Companies can't just be passive bystanders waiting for governments to issue regulations and then comply. There's actually a leadership opportunity here for companies who are on the ground, who are operating in this environment to play a key role in shaping what the disclosures need to look like so that we all make sure that these chips don't end up in the hands of our adversaries.
Disclosures are one thing, but designing new types of chips to abide by changing rules is another. And NVIDIA has been trying to do that. Every time the rules have changed, they've designed a different type of chip that China is allowed to access. And now the crackdown on the H20. How do you think Jensen Huang has navigated this thus far?
Well, I think it's worth taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture here, which is if you have to modify your product so that a totalitarian customer isn't using it to undermine your country's national security, something's wrong. So how do you take a look at what the overall business strategy is and national security strategy is and start to think about what is a long game here? And for American chip companies in China, it's not going to be a long game because China has declared that it wants to be self-sufficient in critical technologies. Semiconductors is one of them, in all critical technologies by 2035. And so the clock is ticking on American chip companies right now, and whether it is the company leaving the market on its own terms, or it's the U.S. government issuing new export control regulations, or ultimately China creating its own national champions like Huawei and then ousting American companies, the opportunity is for a business leader to decide now whether they want to get out on their own terms or have it be dictated by China.
But then Jensen Huang, as the crackdown on H20s happened, goes to Beijing, is in China, reconfirming his commitment to the country. How did you assess that particular level of diplomacy from the company?
Well, I think it was equally important that he also went to Japan thereafter. And look, China is a significant market for NVIDIA and for other chip companies. I think it's their fourth largest by sales. So not surprising that he went there. But at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that American companies, not just chip companies, but companies in all critical tech sectors are working with trusted partners and trusted allies in order to advance our collective national and international security. And the fact that he was in Japan emphasizing the need for increased energy and resources, Japan's been a trusted partner in technology. Those types of conversations, that type of tech diplomacy is really important. And, you see Vice President Vance is in India today as well. Working with democratic partners like that is going to be even more better news for U.S. national security.
When we have the idea, though, that necessity is the mother of all invention, and indeed innovation, Michelle, are we just pushing China to go and build it themselves at a faster rate?
they're going to do it anyway. So, the alternative would be, well, let's hand them our critical technologies and save them some time. The argument doesn't really stand. America's got to be focused on innovating faster and smarter and better and being the leader in all critical areas of technology and addressing what competitors and adversaries like China or Russia or Iran are doing in these sectors. But the imperative for the United States is to focus on innovation first and make sure we maintain a global leadership position. China is going to continue doing that on its own. So the more that we focus on winning what we do best, which is innovation and enterprise, the better off we'll be.
Michelle, it's great to have you back. Thank you, Michelle Giuda of the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy. Now coming up, Netflix